What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Post-Gazette Pirates YouTube channel. I'm Noah Hiles. It's Thursday, which means it's time to answer some more questions on our weekly mailbag. We do this every Thursday. You can read my answers at post-gazette.com, and you can watch me go into a little bit more detail here on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to this channel if you don't already at PG Pirates. And before I get into the answers, also just want to remind you that not only this mailbag, you can check out all of my work at post-gazette.com. You can check out all of our Pirates coverage there. We cover all sports in Pittsburgh, from high school to college to all of the professional teams. We also cover all of the news that takes place both in the city and the surrounding communities. So head to post-gazette.com, get yourself a digital subscription if you don't have one already, and check out our print product, which comes out every Thursday and Sunday. All right. So with that all now mentioned, we get into the questions. We have 7 as always, and we start off with one from Brett, who is asking, when is Bubba Chandler coming? His starts in AAA seem like a waste of time at this point. Brett, I will agree with you. It is a waste of time. It's a waste of time to everyone. It's a waste of time to the other pitchers in AAA who should be getting starts and who could benefit more from getting starts in AAA, guys who have maybe done well in AA, maybe guys who should get an opportunity to move from the bullpen to the rotation. I don't know. That spot could be better used in AAA because Bubba Chandler has nothing left to prove in AAA. He's proven that he is a dominant pitcher at that level, perhaps the best at that level. At least that's what the prospect sites seem to think. So it should be the case of he's ready here. I think everyone would agree that Bubba Chandler has done enough to play Major League Baseball. The only team who might not agree is the team that employs him. Now, why do they think that? Well, the Pirates have said time and time again that he just needs to check boxes. They've pointed toward his volume buildup. They started him slow out of spring training like they did with Paul Skenes last year. They did this with him and Mike Burrows. The irony is Mike Burrows is now in the Major League starting rotation and threw 5 1/3 scoreless innings in a shutout win against the Astros Wednesday night. So if Burrows is stretched out, Chandler should be stretched out. So volume can't be a concern. Now, the other thing that they've pointed to is just his development, and that they want him to come up here and stay up here, and they want him to be essentially a finished product. And they pointed at the breaking ball potentially as an area where he needs to grow. However, just look at the numbers. Is his game not enough to be better than Mike Burrows? Does anyone actually think that Bubba Chandler is an inferior pitcher to Mike Burrows, who's good enough to be a major leaguer? No. Same thing could be said for Carmen Mlodzinski. Does anyone think that Bubba Chandler is inferior to Carmen Mlodzinski? No. He's a better pitcher than both of those guys. He's probably a better pitcher, I think, than some other guys in the starting rotation. But you have to look at where the Pirates are this season, where they are currently. If this was a better team, if they were close to 500, if they had the record similar to the Reds or the Brewers, where they're not even over 500, but they're within 5-6 games of a wild card, maybe less, Bubba Chandler's more than likely on this team. That's just a personal feeling. And that's also how players on this team feel. From what I've been told, they all feel that if they had played better, Bubba would be here right now. But the reality is they're deep in last place. Their record is closer to the Rockies than it is to the playoffs right now. Or they're like as many games. There's less games that separate them between the Rockies, I believe, than the postseason. And even if that's not true, I believe that's true. Let me make sure that's true before I go on any further, because I don't want to give any misinformation. So, yeah, there are 11 games that separate the Pirates and the Rockies, and there are 15 and a half games that separate the Pirates from the Cubs. So, yes, they're closer to the Colorado Rockies than they are to being in first place. All right, so with that being said, you have to think long-term. You're already burning a year of pre-arb control of Paul Skenes this year, and O'Neal Cruz, and other players like Spencer Horwitz, like Nick Gonzalez, like Henry Davis, Jared Jones, even though he's on the IL, and all of that hurts you because these are players that you envision being a key component to your next playoff roster, and you're wasting them in a year where you're going to finish in last place. Do you want to add Bubba Chandler into the mix? That's what the Pirates are likely thinking. And if you can control service time, as ugly as it is, it's probably the better move to make for your organization. I don't necessarily agree with it, but from a business standpoint, are the Pirates willing to risk Bubba Chandler coming up here, doing well, and becoming a free agent in 2030 as opposed to 2031? They want that extra year of him. He's past, I think, any notable dates or deadlines, but even if he is, he can earn a full year of service time if he comes up here and finishes top 2 in Rookie of the Year voting. And you look at this National League Rookie of the Year class, this rookie class, I should say, there aren't a ton of studs. Like last year, you had Skenes, Merrill, and Churio. I mean, those were 3 guys who would probably win Rookie of the Year in most years. They would all be runaways with this year's award. Bubba, even if he comes up here with half the season remaining, if he plays to his potential, he probably finishes in the top 2. And if he finishes top 2, then he gets that full year of service time. And now they waste a full year of Bubba Chandler in a season where by the time he arrived, they had no chance of playing competitive baseball. So that's why he's not up here. They can't afford to waste a year of Bubba Chandler knowing that, they're probably not going to re-sign him, because if he's as good as everyone believes he's going to be out of their price range very quickly. And yeah, they can't waste a year of him. Now, what message does that send to the org? That's another point that should be examined here. Well, yes, it's easily argued the better business decision here, right? What does that send? What message does that send to the clubhouse? The same clubhouse who watched this team DFA Rowdy Tellez and not start IKF when they were a couple of bats away from performance incentive bonuses. Does it look like more penny pinching, especially after this last offseason where they hardly added anything to the Major League payroll? What message does this send? That, sure, yeah, they did it with Skenes last year. They called him up in May. He won Rookie of the Year. That was great. That Jared Jones made the opening day roster last year. Like, yeah, those were moves that they made when they were trying to win. But the moment where things go south, they go into penny pinching mode. I don't know if that sends a great message to your clubhouse, especially when you're an organization that doesn't have the best reputation to begin with when it comes to financially investing in success. So, but it's clearly the route they're taking, and we'll see how it plays out. I think Chandler will eventually get here. I would be shocked if he's not here by the end of June. I personally think he should be here already. I don't anticipate him being here for the remainder of this homestand. He's pitching, as far as I'm concerned, Thursday night for Indianapolis. That's what I've been told as far as last night, even checking in with people who would know that decision. They said, yeah, nothing's changed. The plan is for him to pitch Thursday night in Indy. So if he pitches Thursday night in Indy, his next start date would be either Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, which is, the team's home, but are they going to have him debut midweek against the Marlins? Or are they going to wait for him to maybe debut the next time they're home, which is a weekend series against the Rangers? That kind of lines up better to his start date. And he could pitch on a weekend, and it would be a bigger opportunity to sell tickets. Or do they wait even a little bit longer and debut him the next time they're home, which is the 27th through the end of the month when they're home against the Mets and Cardinals? So I think it happens sometime this month. I don't see it happening this homestand. And I just explained why I think that's the case. Cheryl asks, whatever happened to the revolution that was torpedo bats? Constant chatter the first couple weeks of the season, then silence. It is funny. That was not only one of the biggest stories in baseball, that was one of the biggest stories in sports. That was at a time where March Madness was going on. The NBA and NHL regular seasons were wrapping up, so you had teams trying to qualify for the playoffs. The NFL draft was around that time. There was so much going on in the world of sports. And we're talking about torpedo bats. That was like the big story, and they've kind of gone away. I haven't monitored the numbers altogether. One, I don't think we have a clear idea of just how many people are using them this season. it seems like for the most part, guys that are using them are producing at a very similar rate to which they've produced in the past. There have been some cases, I think, where guys are a little better, some cases where they're a little worse. So overall, it doesn't look to have changed everything like we thought they were going to. I get the intrigue behind the story early on. I mean, anything that involves, you know, change in baseball is going to generate headlines, especially when it's something like changing a bat. There hasn't been a lot of changes to the baseball bat since it was invented hundreds of years ago. There's these rules and regulations, and maybe you change the type of wood it is or something like that over the course of time. But for the most part, the shape has always remained the same. And then all of a sudden, the shape looks different, and it results in a historic amount of home runs in an opening series. And it takes place in the biggest media market in the country, in the sport, in New York. And that's going to generate some headlines. I think the bigger story that's going to come from torpedo bats, and that's going to be something that will probably unfold not just like next year, but like way down the line, is that we're going to start viewing bats differently. They're going to be viewed kind of like a golf club. You look at golf clubs can be custom made to fit not only the physical makeup of the person swinging the golf club, right? Like, I'm not going to swing the same type of golf club, even if it's my 7-iron, if I get it custom made to fit me, is going to be different than Tiger Woods' 7-iron. He's taller than me. He's stronger than me. Those are things that are going to impact how his club is made compared to mine. But another thing that's going to impact how his golf club is made compared to mine is how he swings. You can get your clubs custom made to cater to your swing path. And that should also apply for baseball bats. Why wouldn't it? The goal is to get barrel to the ball. And if your swing path, if you're able to identify where your swing path comes across and you can move the barrel to make sure that through your swing path, if we move the barrel down here just a little bit more, you're able to get that barrel through the strike zone. That's a good idea. Maybe it doesn't look like a torpedo bat, but I think there's a lot of changes to come here to bat technology in what remains of this decade and moving forward. And we might look back at the torpedo bat as like really the first true thought in that like line of thinking. That was like something that maybe sparked that line of thinking. So bat ingenuity, don't give up on it yet. Maybe give up on the torpedo bats though. Malls asks, post-Cutch era, how do you see the Pirates using the DH? Do you think they go out and acquire a big bat or use it as a revolving door? I don't see them going out and acquiring someone to be a sole DH for two reasons. One, I don't think a lot of teams like to have someone that just completely anchors that position. I think every team obviously has someone that gets the majority of the at-bats as the designated hitter. But I think if every team had their druthers, they would like to have multiple options at that spot. And you just kind of roll with A, who's producing the best as a DH that season, or B, what makes the most sense. If you have, like, you look at the Dodgers, they have to play their guy at DH because, last year he couldn't play in the field. He had an arm surgery that prevented him from being able to throw. So Ohtani was their full-time DH. But I would be willing to bet that eventually Shohei Ohtani, I mean, we'll see how the pitching stuff plays out, but he's probably going to be an outfielder at some point in his career too, I would have to imagine. And that's because they want that DH spot to be available for other guys. If Mookie Betts has a shoulder injury, like we saw with Brian Reynolds this past year, you can DH him, still use him for his bat because he's only unavailable in the field. All teams like to have that option. Like I said, some teams have their primary DH. One, those types of players, more often than not, are very expensive. Like the best DH that's going to hit the market this offseason, I believe, is Kyle Schwarber. I mean, it'd be great if the Pirates paid Kyle Schwarber what he wants to bring him in here. He would make this team a lot better. I don't see that happening. And I don't see them doing that for any player in that, tier of talent. That strict DH tier, I should say. So when you look at it it's better for the Pirates to keep that spot open, and it allows you to do a little bit more. Like, let's say you have Joey Bart and Henry Davis next year, and both of them are hitting the ball well. Well, this is a way for both of them to get at bats. Brian Reynolds, this is a good way to make sure his bat is in the lineup 160 games. O'Neal Cruz, same thing. You can have your primary DH, like I said. Like, if Cutch weren't on the team now, I would assume that Reynolds would be the primary DH against right-handers. Joey Bart would be the primary DH against lefties. That's what I would think they would do. And if they don't make any significant changes, that might be what it looks like next year. I think if there ever were to be another like primary DH that they don't go out and acquire, it'd probably be Reynolds, just because his fielding hasn't been good. It's gotten worse every year. And this allows him to just focus on hitting. But even if that is the case, I think that it's something where if Reynolds were to play 160 games, I think 100 would be at DH and then 60 would be as a fielder. I don't think it would be as lopsided as we see right now with McCutchen, where it's almost like 90% of his playing time, if not more, comes at that DH spot. I don't think the Pirates will have another player that does that unless if a specific situation calls for it to happen. Kyle wants to know what my thoughts are on the national media's continued push for Paul Skenes to be traded. Do you think this highlights a deeper issue in baseball, specifically the growing disparity between small market and big market teams? A little bit, yes. But I think what it highlights more is how the national media views the Pittsburgh Pirates organization. I don't think that, I mean, I'm sure there are some people who only want to see Skenes pitch in like a big market. I think the general baseball fan consensus is they want to see Paul Skenes pitch in the playoffs. And I don't think they care who he pitches for in the playoffs. I think in the ideal world, a lot of people would like to see Paul Skenes pitch for the Pirates in the playoffs because, you know, it would be something different. And I think there are a lot of baseball fans who like to see the underdog win. But the reason they're rooting for him to be traded is because I think a lot of people, especially people outside this town who have no rooted or invested interest in the Pittsburgh Pirates' success, they don't believe the Pirates are going to be good enough to get Skenes to the playoffs during his time here. He's got 5 remaining years of control, 4 after this season. And I think that a lot of people look at the Pirates organization and think, okay, well, they don't spend money, they don't develop well, and they're just not good enough with what they currently have to ever get over this hump. And so they believe that, yeah, this Pirates team can't get Skenes to the playoffs. So if that's the case, then send him somewhere where he can get to the playoffs. And the trade-off is by getting rid of him early, like super early, that you can get a trade return that's so large that your organization isn't viewed as to be as big of a joke as it currently is. And I think that's where this all comes from. I think if people genuinely believe, the people who believe the Pirates can get to the playoffs with Skenes don't want to see him traded, right? I think most of those people are Pirate fans, or there are people who still hold out hope that, you know, they'll be better with development, maybe because of these new front office hires over the past year and a half, or maybe they'll be just willing to step out of their comfort zone this offseason and spend a little bit more money, and that they're in a bad division and it won't take much. Those are the people who don't want to see Skenes traded. They want to see him do it here and make it work in Pittsburgh. But the people who believe the Pirates just aren't good enough, that they're years away from being a legitimate contender, they look at Skenes' contract and they say, all right, well, by the time Connor Griffin is here and you make up for years of bad drafting and development and get the players necessary to surround Skenes with success, how many years will he have remaining here? And it'll be time to trade him anyway. So why not do it now? That's how those people are thinking. I don't think it's, there is the overlining thinking of, yeah, like it's clear they're not going to extend him. Like it just seems to be universally accepted that he's got a limited amount of time here. And I don't think people are rooting for him to just go to a big market immediately. I think people just want to see Paul Skenes play for a team that has an actual shot of winning something, because it'd be really fun to watch him in the postseason. I've got 3 more questions. We're going to take a quick break before I get to them to hear from our show's presenting sponsor, Greenewalt.
Hey, Pittsburgh. When you think of great roofs, you think Greenewalt Roofing Company. With over 20 years experience, Greenewalt knows your roof is your home's first line of defense. From rain, wind, snow, and ice. That's why Greenewalt Roofing's standard for perfection is so important. You can trust that their team of experienced installers will treat your property like it's their own. When it comes to roof replacements, Greenewalt Roofing is Pittsburgh's only choice. Visit greenewaltroofing.com today or call 412-314-8882 to schedule your free estimate. PA contractor number 36262.
All right, back at it. Juice wants to know, it's been said how analytically driven the Pirates are as an org. It's also been said by some reporters how behind the org is in areas like analytics. Other reports have said they've hired so many analytics people that they had to move them into an empty space above Mike's Beer Bar. Make it all make sense. This is such a weird topic because do the Pirates have... All right, let's start over here. Okay. I think the idea that the Pirates have a ton of analytics employees is painted from a very misguided perspective. I think, yes, compared to 10 years ago, there are far more research and development employees in the Pirates organization. That should be the case. Analytics, if that's how we want to put all of this under the same umbrella, analytics has a much bigger presence in baseball, not just Pittsburgh, in baseball than it did 10 years ago. So it's like, there are probably more people who work IT at Apple now than there were working IT at Apple 30 years ago. Right? Why is that? It's because the world has changed and those people are necessary. It's the same thing. Baseball has become more and more analytically driven over the last 20 years. It's gone from like 0 to 100,000. So in order to do that, you have to hire more people to keep up. I don't agree with the idea that the Pirates have this crazy amount of quote-unquote analytics employees. Unless you're comparing it to what it was under the past regime, which again fell behind in that area. That's the reason why they stopped winning, is because they got complacent with how they operated as an organization. That was once a very good cutting-edge front office, and then they stalled out. They became complacent, and they allowed things to get away from them. And then they bring in a new regime who's forced with catching back up. And in the first couple of years of that regime, a pandemic occurred. And no one was hiring during a pandemic or the couple of years that took place afterwards. And so after that time period comes to an end, we start seeing them add a ton of people to their front office. We see them make changes to the leadership positions. They start adding new positions. And when that coincides with losing on the field and a low payroll, it's easy to say, oh, well, all they care about is analytics. All any front office cares about is analytics. Every baseball organization is analytically driven in today's game. That's just the truth. There are some teams who do it better than others, and that's what's happening here. Right now, the Pirates are operating under a same, strategy as all other teams. They rely on models. They rely on data. It's just their models and data aren't better than the teams of which they're competing against. That's why they're behind in development. Because their models just aren't better than the models the Brewers have right now. Or the Reds, or whoever. That explains why they're not getting to that final step of development. So how do you fix that? You invest more money into it. You hire the right people. You move the people who were not fit to be in those positions outside. Sometimes you let them go. Sometimes you find them a new job if you think they can provide value elsewhere. And that's what they're doing. The problem with this is, one, these types of moves take years. to typically show results. And this team doesn't have years. I think some of the hires they've made recently are good hires, but the value that those people are going to provide might not show up when Ben Cherington's GM. And will they still be around to make these decisions for the next person at the helm? Who knows? But yeah, it's not the idea. I don't agree with the notion that the Pirates have a ton of more analytics people than any other org, and that they are obsessing over analytics more than any other baseball organization in the sport. That's just not true. That's just not true. I know that from people I know who work for other organizations. I know that from conversations I've had with people within the Pirates organization. They do not have the biggest research and development staff, which would be the analytics employees. They do not. They're not considered to have the biggest staff among baseball. And if they did, that's a good thing. Because when you look at it, the Pirates aren't ever going to outspend teams in free agency. So they should be outspending teams in the other area of the game. They should be invested more in analytics than these high market teams, because that's their only way they're going to get an edge. And by investing, it's not just having a big staff. It's not having the biggest staff. It's having the most productive staff. And that's how their front office should be evaluated. So far, it hasn't been good. But they've recently made moves. They're adding people onto the staff. And if these additions lead to better success in drafting, better success in development, to where they can get a consistent pipeline of productive players, not just pitchers, but position players, then that's good. It just hasn't worked out that way. And I think that we've only seen one example of successful baseball here in Pittsburgh since 1992. And we forget what led to that success. Their research and development team back then was like less than 10 people, but still at that time was more than what some organizations had. And they were 10 smart people who made the right decisions and identified talent and put a winning team together. But then it didn't grow. Now they're behind. So now they're trying to play catch up, and now they're trying to figure out if they have the right people in the right positions. So hope that answers your question, Juice. 2 more questions, going to give you quick answers. This has gone on really long. I typically like to keep these mailbags under 20 minutes, but you guys brought some good questions to the table this time. So not that you don't normally, but these have been particularly good. So shout out to everyone who submitted them. And also shout out to the people who submit them and I don't pick them. I try to keep just a similar formula, 5 for the written, 7 altogether for the video. And I try to get to everyone's questions. Don't get discouraged if I don't pick yours. Sometimes there's just a lot of overlapping. Sometimes some of the questions pertain to ones I answered the prior week or two. So I just try to keep it fresh, but just know there's nothing personal if I don't pick your question. I want to try to get everyone's question in at least once this season. All right, 2 more going. Eileen asks, are the Pirates making any effort at all to add offense? They claim they haven't written off this season yet. So are they going to support the starting pitching? How are they going to start starting pitching? I mean, they can claim they haven't written this year off yet, but I mean, what they're doing with Bubba Chandler suggests otherwise. I think if they're going to add any offense, it's going to be in a trade similar to what we saw with Priester for York last year. And it might come with higher rated players on both ends. Like if they traded Hunter Barco this deadline for a Hunter Barco equivalent position player, that's a good trade, right? I think that they don't just have to be sellers at the deadline. I don't think it makes sense for them to buy all out, right? Like they shouldn't be trading prospects for an MLB player right now just because, especially like a rental. Like what does that rental really provide? But I don't hate the idea of doing some true baseball trades. If those players come back with years of control and can make your lineup better, then you should do it. And I think if there's ever going to be an addition to the offense this year, that's how it's going to arrive. Final question comes from Jimbo. He gets his question in at the 30-minute mark here. Pirates are obviously in a weird spot right now. They're out of contention, but not really tanking. From your perspective, How have the players been handling this crazy season? Are there any people in that clubhouse who truly believe this can be a winner one day? Yeah, I think there are. I don't know if it's collectively believed. I think it's safe to say that some of the guys who aren't here long term are ready to get out, without naming any names or whatever. And I don't think that that's like a scathing report or analysis or anything. But if you're on a 1-year contract and you've been playing well, and you're a veteran, and your career is on the back nine, or at least in the prime of your career, you would ideally like to be playing for a team that has a lot more to compete for, right? So they might not be completely invested in the big picture view of this team, but I don't know if they were ever required to do that. Like, they were required to be valuable for 1 year. This year did not go according to plan, so now their value is a trade asset. I think they understand that. But I do think that there are people who are here long term that do think that they can still piece together a winning ball club. Like, I think Paul Skenes believes it can happen. I think he believes it can happen if a certain amount of things are done, if a certain amount of moves are made. But I think he believes that eventually, like, they have the pitching. I think that's the thing. All of the people who are going to be here, who are still have multiple years of control, they all recognize that the pitching side of things is good enough to make the playoffs, that it just comes down to hitting. And then there's a varying, level of belief in, all right, well, can our hitters ever figure it out? Some people really believe it. Some people are like, all right, well, let's see it. I think that's where it currently stands. But I do think overall, yeah, guys are discouraged with how this year went. I think guys acknowledge that they need more help than what currently exists. But I think the general consensus is they're a couple of bats away from being competitive. I think that if you were to poll the whole clubhouse, I think the majority of people in there would agree with that assessment that, hey, we're only a couple of bats away. I'm not sure if I feel that way. I'm not sure if you feel that way. But I think from conversations I've had, I know at least a couple of players who kind of voiced that we're not far away. We need a couple of guys to hit better. And this is a team that can compete in this division. So yeah, hope that answers your question. Hopefully I answered all your questions. Again, this was a long mailbag. I hope you all stayed tuned for all of it. I tried to give the best answers possible. Sorry this was so long-winded. I try to keep these, like I said, under 20 minutes. But if we go long sometimes, we go long sometimes. Let me know if you like it when it's a little bit more clean, concise onto the next question, or if you like it when I go a little bit longer and give an extended viewpoint to these questions. Yeah, comment below. Tell me what you think. If you're cool with these being 30-ish minutes, then I'll keep going. I don't want to force it, but I can give a little bit more of a long-winded answer if you guys like that. But if you like it to be a little bit more short, sweet, to the point, I can make that happen too. So let me know in the comments. Subscribe to this channel if you don't already, at PG Pirates and the Post-Gazette Sports Podcast Network. And check out all of our work at post-gazette.com, where we have you covered for all things Pirates.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.